Welcome everyone to your Community of Practice session. Today I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the research I've been exploring. And this is the work of Fisher, Fry, and Hattie, particularly as it looks at visible literacy and visible numeracy. And one of the concepts that really resonates with me is that of effect size. What is effect size? Think of effect size as the impact or power to move learning forward that a skill, a strategy, a resource brings to bear upon the learning environment. An effect size of 1.0 basically suggests that a student could move more than 1 year's worth of learning forward. So what I would like to do over the next few moments is take an opportunity to guide you through a bit of a presentation, but understanding effect size, and we're going to look specifically at direct instruction. So as I mentioned, effect size is the measurement, the impact that a given strategy or process will have on its intended recipient. And in this case, we're talking that the impact that it would have on students. So the effect size of 0 would indicate that there is no change going to happen, and it stands to reason. If I don't do anything, nothing else will likely happen. So the effect size of 1.0 then should be regarded as large, huge, if you think about it. And so when we look at some of the sizes, in 1988, Cohen suggested that 0.2 is small, 0.5 is medium, and 0.8 is large. Whereas in investigating achievement, Hattie, Fisher, and Fry, they really talk about that 0.2 effect size would be small, something that has a nominal or low impact. 0.4 has a medium, which is a significant impact, and anything that has an effect size of 0.6 or higher has a huge impact on student learning. So if we think of 1.0, again, we should think of it as absolutely, bigly huge. Absolutely huge, as President Trump might suggest. So I'd like to talk about direct instruction. Now today, we often hear that direct instruction, should be avoided, or it isn't a great practice, or we do too much direct instruction. But I want you to contemplate, because this is one of the bread and butter pedagogical practices that we use in direct instruction. What effect size might that have? So let's take a look, and lo and behold, it's 0.59. And again, according to Hattie, that would be a large potential impact on student learning and achievement. And so we simply can't dismiss that direct instruction isn't good, it isn't valid. In fact, it's very powerful. But what I would challenge is, are we utilizing direct instruction powerfully, in meaningful ways? Are we utilizing it as it's truly intended to be utilized? So let's talk a little bit about that, the features of direct instruction, because as I said, it does have a large impact. And so we know that the instructional aspect includes key elements of lesson design. And this is very important, and I've highlighted some of the text in the bold font here. So we need to plan clear learning targets. Students really need to know where they are, where they need to go, and how we can collectively move them forward. So student engagement and commitment is built in through understanding learning intentions. So that is, the student knows every lesson where we need to go, what we hope to achieve. They also need to have a rich sense of success criteria. What is it that is indicative of attainment of a concept or understanding? And more so, what does mastery of that concept really look like? Another facet to look at is modeling and checking for understanding. We also want to get into guided instruction, which talks about scaffolding learning, making sure that there is opportunity to give meaningful feedback, frequent meaningful feedback to students. So again, they understand where they need to go, and are they hitting the mark along the way. The ultimate goal is we want to foster student independence. The teacher ultimately is the one who needs to really articulate and understand that success criteria, and this is a strong articulation of your program of studies. But you will also utilize resource materials such as the data from PATs, diplomas, etc., to understand the impact that you are having with teaching and learning. So it's really important to understand what the students know, what they can demonstrate, and to include their metacognition in that process. So we also know that it's important to really set those key learning points along the way and to have those check-ins, because there's no point in going forward with the concept if the student is struggling or having some difficulties. And we always want to find ways to attain that information. We know that independent learning continues as the students apply newly learned knowledge to new but parallel situations. And so we take a surface level of learning about a concept, and really that's what direct instruction really helps to illuminate that surface learning. And then we seek ways to take the learning deeper, to show connections, the relevancy to the real world, and ultimately we want students to be able to transfer what they've learned to a new situation. And sort of that, aha, I see what I learned here applies to this new situation, this new context. So let's take a look at just a few other aspects of effect size. So feedback is very powerful. Teacher clarity, and again that speaks to setting clear learning targets and including the students in the conversation of assessment, that students know the benchmark to which they're being held accountable. We know that interventions are very important as well, to make sure that the right classroom context setting supports are there for our students who may have some learning difficulties or challenges. There is power in classroom discussions. Micro-teaching, and that is a mini lesson or utilizing a whole part whole. So taking a group of students who need to work on one or two little areas and catching them up or giving them opportunity to really reinforce some learning gaps that may exist. Teacher credibility is important as well, and that really I think speaks to the heart of our vocation as Catholic educators, to be who we are called to be, and to be open and honest and really look at having those conversations with students, and I think expecting more from students. And so you can see that self-reported grades and student expectations has an effect size of 1.44. So when we do have those authentic, meaningful, open and honest dialogue with our students, when we expect more from our students, that's to say we expect more of their ownership and their learning, and that they have a richer understanding of where they are, where they need to go, and those steps along the way, we really can articulate pathways for success to our learners. Ultimately, any strategy that we would ever want to employ should have, at its very least, an effect size of 0.4, which is medium and powerful. And so ultimately, when we think of the work that we do together, just as we're doing in our communities of practice, you can see that when we come together, when we're able to learn from and with each other, to leverage our gifts, our talent, strengths, our experiences from different learning contexts and working contexts that we've had, we can see that the highest single effect size is collective teacher efficacy, and it is a whopping 1.50, which means that through our collective work, through our endeavors of communities of practice, we have a rich opportunity to really push learning and understanding. And I think that's absolutely a powerful opportunity, and I thank you all very much for that. Fisher, Fry, Hattie say that every student deserves a great teacher, not by chance, but by design. And you are all great teachers. And as a district, as a growing district in particular, we have a lot of things to consider, especially when we look at building our own capacity and planning for the future. So I'm going to challenge you just to sort of think about effect size. What methodologies, pedagogical practices, and resources are you using in your classroom at your site? What impact are these having on great learning, teaching, and assessment that we are really hoping to see transpired and infused and moving forward? And what else do you think might be needed? So these are some points to ponder as we continue our work in our communities of practice.